In the heart of ancient Macedonia, a prince was born, destined not just to rule, but to reshape the world. This is the story of Alexander the Great. Tutored by the brilliant Aristotle, young Alexander's mind was forged in philosophy, science, and the art of war. But his heart burned with a fire inherited from his father, King Philip II, a dream of uniting Greece and conquering the vast Persian Empire. At just 20 years old, following his father's assassination, Alexander ascended the throne. He didn't hesitate. With swift and ruthless precision, he secured his kingdom, quelling rebellions and uniting the fractured Greek city-states under his banner. The stage was set. His gaze turned eastward towards the colossal Persian Empire, the superpower of its day, ruled by King Darius III. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia with an army of loyal Macedonians and Greeks. He was outnumbered, outfinanced, but never outmatched in spirit or strategy. At the Battle of the Granicus River, he led the charge himself, a blur of bronze and courage, smashing the Persian defenses and announcing his arrival with the force of a thunderclap. The victories kept coming. At Issus, Alexander faced Darius III in person. The Persian king commanded a massive force, but Alexander's tactical genius turned the tide. He spotted a weakness, charged directly at Darius's chariot, and the great king fled, leaving his family and his empire's fate hanging in the balance. Alexander, in a show of magnanimity, treated Darius's captured family with the utmost respect, earning admiration even from his enemies. He marched south, liberating the cities of Ionia and laying siege to the impenetrable island fortress of Tyre. For 7 months, the city resisted. Undeterred, Alexander ordered his engineers to build a massive causeway, a land bridge across the sea, a feat of engineering so audacious it seemed impossible. But for Alexander, the impossible was just a challenge. Tyre fell. Next, Egypt. The Egyptians, weary of Persian rule, welcomed Alexander not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. They crowned him pharaoh and declared him a son of the god Amun. It was here, at the mouth of the Nile, that he founded the first and most famous of his many cities, Alexandria, a beacon of culture and learning that would shine for centuries. But the heart of Persia still beat. Alexander pushed eastward again, deep into Mesopotamia. Near the village of Gaugamela, the final decisive confrontation awaited. Darius had gathered the full might of his empire, an army of staggering size, complete with scythed chariots and war elephants. The Battle of Gaugamela was a masterclass in military strategy. Alexander used his famous oblique formation, drawing the Persian cavalry out to the flanks, creating a gap in their center. He then led his elite companion cavalry in a devastating wedge-shaped charge straight for Darius. Once again the Persian king fled the field, and his army disintegrated. The Persian Empire, which had dominated the known world for 2 centuries, was now Alexander's. He marched into Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis, the legendary capitals of Persia. In Persepolis, the ceremonial heart of the empire, a great fire consumed the grand palace of Xerxes, a symbolic act of vengeance for the Persian invasion of Greece generations earlier. But Alexander was more than a conqueror. He was a visionary. He began to fuse Greek and Persian cultures, encouraging his soldiers to marry Persian women and adopting elements of Persian court customs himself. He dreamed of a new unified world, a Hellenistic empire where cultures would blend and flourish. His ambition, however, was limitless. It wasn't enough to have conquered Persia. He heard stories of the rich lands of India and set his sights on the very edge of the known world. He crossed the treacherous Hindu Kush mountains, a grueling journey that tested his army to its limits. He fought fierce battles against warlords in modern-day Afghanistan and Pakistan. In India, at the Battle of the Hydaspes River, he faced his most formidable opponent yet, King Paras and his army of war elephants. The terrified Macedonian horses refused to face the colossal beasts. But Alexander, ever the innovator, adapted his tactics, overwhelming Porus's forces with speed and precision. Deeply impressed by Porus's bravery, Alexander not only spared his life but made him an ally, expanding his kingdom. Yet his men had reached their breaking point. After 8 years of relentless campaigning and marching thousands of miles from home, they refused to go further. At the banks of the Hyphasis River, the unconquerable Alexander was finally defeated, not by an enemy army but by the exhaustion of his own men. With a heavy heart, he agreed to turn back. The return journey was an odyssey of hardship, a brutal trek across the desolate Gedrosian desert that claimed thousands of lives. Finally, he returned to Babylon, the new capital of his vast empire. He began planning new expeditions to Arabia, to the west, his mind still ablaze with dreams of further conquest and discovery. But fate had other plans. In the summer of 323 B.C., in the very palace of Nebuchadnezzar II, Alexander fell ill after a long banquet. For 10 days a fierce fever raged. The world held its breath as the invincible conqueror, the man who had never lost a battle, fought for his life. His loyal generals filed past his bed one last time. He was too weak to speak. On June 10th, Alexander the Great, king of Macedonia, pharaoh of Egypt, king of Persia, and lord of Asia, died. He was only 32 years old. His empire, held together by the sheer force of his will, fractured almost immediately, carved up by his generals in a series of wars that lasted for decades. Yet his legacy was immortal. Alexander didn't just conquer lands. He connected worlds. He spread Greek language, art, and ideas across a vast expanse, ushering in the Hellenistic age, a vibrant new chapter in human history. He was a warrior, a scholar, a visionary, a mortal man who dared to live like a god, and in just over a decade forever changed the course of history. Thanks for watching. If you were captivated by the saga of Alexander, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more epic stories from history. See you next time.